Good morning, everyone. So today we have on the call with us the speaker of the day, Kyaw. He's the senior developer relation engineer from Google Cloud. Kyaw gonna walk us through the session today, which is going hands-on with Gemini Multimodality. Over to you, Kyaw.
Thank you for the introduction. My name is Kyaw, and I'm currently working for Google Cloud. And today we're going to go through this multimodal use case, right? We get Gemini, I think, earlier this year, and it was kind of like a game changing because at the time that we released Gemini, right, Gemini actually support multimodal reasoning natively. What does it mean is that before the era of Gemini, there are only element model, large language model that can only take in text and output text, right? So if you want to do anything that is related, you have to put into text or convert things into text. Then the model can actually output text. So Gemini is coming in the ways that you can actually upload or pass in, like images, audio, video, and, code. And those can actually consider, even though they are different media, the Gemini would consider them holistically, like entirely, and try to give you the most, relevance and some, coherence output, like one output, right? So a lot of people actually try to recreate something like this, right? So one of the ways that they did is by putting in different type of model and bundling them together, right? So one model would be very good at processing code, another model would be very good at processing video, one model that can process images really well, and then they just like have a kind of like a stack of those model, and then you pass in that model, right? So those are, I call it multi-modals, right? Because there's a lot of models that is bundled together to solve the task, but whereby Gemini is one model that can actually understand all the different type of modality, right? So modal mean types of like data, right? So it could be image, could be audio, it could be text. So multimodal means different type of data type that can pass into Gemini. Also, when we were trying to use Gemini to do applications or even creating different type of model, there are things like teachers to students model, or like there are different type of weights, different type of version, and it's actually have like a different variation or different use cases based on how big the model is, how fast the model is, how accurate the model is, and how relevant the model is to the current state of the work, right? So this is where you have various choices on Gemini kind of family. If you want to use a chatbot, we have gemini.google.com. If you want to just play around and try prototyping, you have Google AI Studio. If you want to create enterprise solution that can scale and things like that, you have Vertex AI Studio. And even for the Gemini itself, you have like Gemini Flash, Gemini Pro, Gemini 1.5, Gemini 1.0, and so on, right? So there's a lot of choices you can actually make and pick the ones that are helpful for your business or your use case that you want to solve. And one good thing about models from Google is that you have this responsibility and the safety layer at the backend step. So you kind of have to just like control it from the parameters, but you can assure that things like if you are building a child applications and you don't want things that are not suitable for the age of 10 years old and things like that, you can actually ask Gemini to kind of control it in a way that is will never output, right? So there's like harmful messages, there's like impersonations, there's like vulgarity and things like that. You can actually block it from the back end, right? So things are kind of like secure in the sense as well, right? So since the start of the year, right, there might not be a lot of announcement in the sense, but there has always been a new kind of incremental improvement over different type of Gemini family. Okay. So now we are in the era of Gemini 1.5. There's like a version of the model, and you have a type of the model, which is Flash and Pro. Right. So if you have a Flash is like, fastest and most cost efficient model. Right. So it still supports multimodality, right? But the quality itself, right, it might not do well for certain complex tasks, right? So most of the time you can get away with just using 1.5 Flash. But if you really need like intensive reasoning, you want to process with a very large amount of data, right? So you can choose Gemini 1.5 Pro. So the 1.5 Pro is more of like a little bit slower than Flash, but it can take in more information. So it has actually 2 million context window. So that's a lot of books or video quality that you can actually pass in. And then, both of them are actually multimodal. So you don't have to like, oh, I have to pick Flash because of that or Pro because of that, right? You can pick anything that suitable for your use case. Just that if you want fast, cheaper, go Flash. If you want more reasoning, if you want more, complicated tasks, you can go for Pro, right? And some people would say, oh, these models I cannot download, I cannot control, I cannot host it my own. How can I actually use, right? If I have on-prem services or if I need to build things on, my own, right? You can actually start using, say, Gemini. So Gemini is the open model, right? So they might not kind of like share the same family kind of thing, but Gemini is open source and you can kind of use it from a different weight point, right? So you have 9 billion and 27 billion as well. So this open model, you can actually download them and then you can actually host it by yourself, right? So even though we don't change the names and the model number, right? The backend model has been changing from Google point of view, right? So you actually have things like the more math improvement, you have a multilingual interaction, more languages being added to it, right? So there's also like a more comprehensive understanding from the Flash and Pro, right? And also like there's also some other things like you want to analyze YouTube videos and things like that, which is still in preview, but you can actually do that with newer version of this model, right? And we also have this thing called control generation, right? So not every time you want to generate a response from the model in text format. Maybe you want to come up with JSON format that you can actually integrate very well with your downstream application, right? Or maybe you want to create like a specific type of data format so that you can inject it to your data pipeline, right, in the downstream task. So those are the things that you can actually do with the newer version of the Gemini model as well, right? So not just improving from model weights and things like that standpoint, you can actually have a lot of like a fine tune in the ways that for math, for coding, right, for control generation and things like that as well, that is coming up, right? So there are a few kind of like the ecosystem of things, right, from the Gemini and those AI generative kind of things that you have. One is the model performance, where your models can do certain things, right? Maybe accepting the different type of data set or different type of modality, right? There's also another things of the performance of a specific context, right? Specific kind of solution, right? Math, coding, image generation, video description, and so on, right? So there's like a model performance kind of thing. But you also have like model, I would say like extension, right? So where you can actually start talking about ingesting YouTube videos, right? Getting Google search results and then ground them and things like that, right? There's a lot of like ecosystem around those model, right? It's not just the model, but you need to like when you choose a generative AI solution, you need to think about like, oh, what kind of ecosystem does it support, right? Is my model going to support something like a function calling, right? Something like a control generation. Is my model going to support, ingesting data from YouTube, or can I ground it using Google search capability? Can I link it up to Google Map? Can I link it up to Google Flight? Things like that, right? So not just because one model might do, give you like a good response. You cannot choose that because you might need a little bit more than just the model itself, right? So be mindful of that when you choose the type of model that you want to work with. Okay, so thinking about this ecosystem, right? We actually have different types of products that can serve different types of technologies, right? So if you realize currently we are moving towards something called AI agents, and there's also like a different type of like predictive ML, generative AI, and then there's like a AI agent, right? So if you are into the agent space, we probably have another session that coming of agent as well. So Vertex AI actually put in AI agent as one of the core offering as well. So you can see this AI agents here. You probably initially heard about Gemini for Workspace and Gemini for Google Cloud, and we will also have the Gemini AI for AI agent as well, right? So regardless what you need, right? You need, let's say, for example, vectors that is stored in the different type of database so that your generative AI can read it and then you let them ground it and things like that. You have LOIDB, right? If you want to do analytics on top of the summary that Gen AI gave, you have like BigQuery, right? If you want to just plot the graph to see inside, you also have Looker, right? And if you want to do more like a data governance, Vertex AI itself offer like ML ops, right? If you want to just do everything by yourself, bare metal and things like that, right? Cloud also have the hypercomputer where you have GPU and TPUs that you can use in the virtual environment to support whatever things that you want to do, right? So if you're startups, probably you won't need to go to infrastructure level, right? You can probably just get away with using all these existing services. And if you have more and more, specialties and the people that join, and then you have more and more requirement to, go advanced and beyond to serve the customer and things like that. This is where you start considering having your own kind of like the infrastructure to support this kind of thing. Okay, so one thing to note is that the generative AI era is very different from the way we interact with the AI model initially, right? Before this Gen AI came about, if you want to do any AI stuff, you need to learn how to write Python code. You need to learn how to use things like Keras, TensorFlow, or PyTorch, right? Without it, you don't get to try any Gen AI or anything AI actually, right? So what Gen AI kind of like came out and make it democratized in the ways that you can just use English, right? Or maybe Vietnamese or some other languages as well to interact with the model, right? You don't have to then learn how to write Python code, right? To be able to use the service or maybe use the AI, right? And integrate it. And also there's a lot of like no code or low code solution that is out there, right? So you don't really have to go full code all the time, right? Sometimes, going local, no code might even give you the better ROI than going to full code, right? So things like that you have to consider when you are choosing a generative AI model or the system that you want to integrate or base for your uh, business, right? And I'm not saying that no code local is always the better solution, because sometimes, right, even for startups, you have to go through the full code because your niche or the offering might be something to do with customization, fine tuning. Maybe you are offering something that other competitors cannot offer, and things like that. You have to go full code and do all this one whole pipeline and things like that as well. Right. So this is like, I think, last slides already. For people who are not in Google Cloud environment or who are already in, and most of the things that they cannot think about is like, oh, how do I prevent locked in into Google Cloud, right? Because Gen AI space going really fast. There are different model coming different places, and different company has like always oh, I have new model that is better than other model, and then Google come up with new model that is better than other model and things like that. So how do I make it in a way that is not locked in, right? So the good news is that Google actually partner with all these models builder as well, right? You see from here like Anthropic, Kyaw, Hugging Face, like Menstrual, this is Llama from Facebook, things like that as well, right? Even if you are in Google Cloud, you can still use those models through Model Garden, right? So you're not actually locked in to just use like Gemini per se, right? So if you want to try different type of model, and of course you can go and try it, right? Even if you're building like agent, right? Things like LangChain or Llama Index, those can actually integrate well on the Google Cloud platform as well. We have things like reasoning engine for you to host those agents code as well, right? And if you're thinking like, if you come to Google Cloud, Google had no GPU, right? But you can still use NVIDIA GPU, and we have a very good partnership with them to get all the GPU needs from you guys as well, right? And in terms of data, like some platform might support like object store for your models and things like that. We also have like a GCS, which is you can use for different type of data file, right? It could be JSON, it could be a text file and things like that. You can just dump it all to the GCS, right? And then you can actually link the GCS to the BigQuery, where you can do like a petabyte computation and things like that, right? Even if your data is like somewhere else, you can actually use thing called Omni. So Omni is more like a multi cloud platform where you can actually link it up to like Amazon S3 or the Azure storage, right? So those are kind of like the whole ecosystem, right? So just to recap, right? When you are trying to build a GenAI solution, you need to think of the capability of the model, right? First thing first, is it multimodal? Do I require it to be multimodal, or is just text only or code only is enough for me? So once you have decided, right? So if you have multimodal, it kind of like select a couple of model that is currently available, and then you think from the standpoint of, okay, I need to have something to integrate with my downstream. Then can the model support things like fourth generation or function calling, right? If those model doesn't support that, it's very hard for you to integrate those model with the downstream tasks. And then if you already chosen it, right, can I actually switch it around to like a different model if I need to? So, right, no locked in and things like that. What are the ecosystem that going to support me? Do they have like APIs? Do they have a sample code? Do they have some data support? Can I use GPU on the platform that I'm in and things like that, right? So not just the model and the API. You need to think from the holistic view of what's the ecosystem and how can I make my project successful by using those ecosystems together, right? So it's not just the model, right? Some people say, oh, you just use the API and done. It doesn't work like that in a production environment, right? You might be able to just get away with the API if you're trying out the POC or maybe like MVP, right? Minimum viable product. But if you really want to make it production and scale it out to the whole entire world, you have to have this kind of support and ecosystem that is available to you. Okay, so this is actually a hands-on lab, right? So we need to do the environment setup, right? Before we go down, please go into incognito mode, right? So that, I can assure that you're only logging into the account that you are going to use, right? So please log in using your personal Gmail, right? So when, don't use your enterprise, because if you're using your work account might have some restriction that you cannot actually use certain type of the API, so you cannot enable certain type of product and things like that. So go to incognito, try to log in with your personal Gmail account, and then this is the URL that you can actually receive $5 credits for the lab today. Okay, so after you have done this, right, let me actually zoom out. Right, so if you have done this, you will actually see this page, right? So I'm going to sign in using my account, right? It will actually show me this, right? And click on this, proceed to the next step, right? So once you clicked, right, you should be able to see this, right? So you will be seeing this, and then you just click on this, then you should be able to redeem, right, using this page. Okay, so this is the page that you should be able to see, and make sure that you are applying to the same account email, right? So try not to put anything that is not yours, right? Because apparently it's going to get created for the account that you put it here, right? So if you redeem it one time, and then they might not be able to redeem it another time also. So make sure that you're redeeming to the right place. And if you have any issues, you can just ping in the chat. I'm not sure whether I am able to answer them, but if everything goes well, right, you should be able to see the credit $5 on your project, right? So why I say you should click on this is that if you click on this next step, you will actually come up to this slides that you can see. Okay, so let me I think Ha is going to paste the chat in the chat or something. Make sure you're typing the URL very correctly, because if you have, like, let's say Gemini with the E or something, maybe AI it's a AL, you might not be able to redeem it because there might be like, oh, no events to redeem, things like that. Once you redeem, what I need you to do is to go to this notebook, right, which is Google/Gemini Multimodal. It will actually lead you to a notebook on GitHub, right? So this is the notebook that I'm going to be going through today, right? And of course, you will have a chance to hands-on yourself as well, right? And once you have done it, and you should be able to understand different type of modality that you can actually use on the Google Cloud with Gemini. Okay, so let me show you the notebook here, and hopefully you can all see this. So I hope everyone is already on the notebook page, right? So the next things that we need to do, hopefully people also created these steps, right? So there's like a step to create new project, right? So you should be able to see these projects that you have to create, right? So try to do this. Maybe I will wait like 1 or 2 minutes, right, for you to take a look at the steps, right? Make sure you are getting like $5 credits, and then you create a project, and once you have the project, create a new project, right? Try to choose the billing account, right? So if you only have Google Cloud billing account, like one only, then you should only see the first and the second box. You won't be seeing the billing account because you only have one, right? So then they will auto choose for you. But if you see this, and make sure you are choosing the Google Cloud Trial billing account, right? So somehow you cannot find Google Cloud Platform Trial account and things like that, make sure you are logging into the same email that you redeem the credits, right? So if you redeem the credits on your personal account, you should be able to kind of like see it on your personal Google console. Okay, since this is going to be a little bit more, 30 minutes left. Okay, I will continue, right? So if you are having issues, right, feel free to reach out and see how we can help you, right? So far, I think it should be quite straightforward to redeem the credits, $5, and then create the project, right? So let's see. The next step will be to run this notebook, right? So once you have the notebook, right, you can actually click this button called Run in Colette Enterprise, right? So I just actually did. So Run in Colette Enterprise is this one. Let me just make it into full screen, right? So if you click this Run in Colette Enterprise, what's going to happen is going to just copy this notebook, right, directly into your Google Cloud environment, right? And then of course, when you have this environment, you have to click on connect. So there should be a connect button somewhere here, right? So let me actually change the pointer size so that it's really quite obvious. Okay, so it's better, right? So here you will see connect. If you see connect, click connect. What it's gonna do, it will actually create the environment for you to run it, right? So they might actually ask you to like, hey, please enable this API, enable that, is fine, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through this code together, and then you can actually take some time to run it. And we will have Q&A about 10 minutes at the end, and hopefully everyone can understand what's the multimodal and also how to use them through the Python SDK, right? So first thing first is we're going to install the packages that we need, right? So, and then after we have installed the packages, we need to restart the session, right? So if you restart the session, then whatever you install it will be able to read it from your current environment, right? So we're going to restart the session, right? Currently it's restarting. Once it's restarted, we have to then import the packages, right? So I already restart, so I'm not going to run this code, right? This is not needed. It's only need if you are running from the Google Colab. So this is the Colab Enterprise. So you don't need to run this, right? And here is like, what's the project ID, right? So the project ID, you can get it from your cloud console. So if you do not know where, you can actually click, right? Maybe control click on this Google Cloud, right? So you will see the project ID directly on the home page, right? So my project ID is of course Tuya Playground, but yours is different, right? So you might name something different. So whatever you're naming, it should show here, right? The project ID. You can click on this to copy it. But if you don't see here for some reasons, make sure you choose the project that you created, right? So this is the project I created. And maybe you already created this a long time ago, right? And then you choose the next project that you just recently created, right? So let's say if I change it to different project, it should be able to show me a different project ID, right? So I'm going to choose this one, and then I will put it back here, right? So all I have to do is just put it back, right? So if you change it here, it will change here also. So don't have to change both, right? Change one, enough, okay? So I'm going to just import it. And this is what it does, is going to create the backend connection from your current instance into the Vertex AI endpoint, right? So if everything runs smoothly, you should be able to see that it's green, right? So you run it successfully. So once we have it, we will just import, how to get a model and what to get the image and part and things like that, right? So generative AI model is to import the model, and the images, of course, is image, and part is where you can actually create a different data type to pass into the model, right? So here we will be actually using two model. One is Pro and one is Flash, right? And there might be some restriction depending on how new your Gmail account is, right? So if your Gmail account is new, you might actually need to use different accounts that is older, right? So that we the detection system from the back end doesn't think that you actually a spammer, right? Because some people just create account for current workshop, right? Like one new Google account. You might have a little bit more restriction in terms of the quota, right? You can still use it, just that you cannot use it fast enough, right? You might have to wait a little bit and then try it one more time, okay? So here, we are just going to create some of the helper function, right? So things like getting the image by from the URL, loading the image, right? Displaying as a video and things like that. Just going to run it all. Right here is we are just trying to read storage from the cloud storage, and then we're going to just run it here, right? So this is more like a text understanding, right? So text understanding, almost all the model has text understanding, right? So this is our question. And then this is the prompt. We're just asking like the average weather and also the weather provide outfit suggestion and so that. So how do we pass in these two questions into one is by creating the array, right? And then you pass in the array directly into the multimodal dot generate content, and then you generate, right? So if you generate it, you should be able to see the output from the model directly, right? So if for some reason, if you're having issues, right, make sure you check all the cells that you run above has executed successfully or not, okay? So if you can see here, we have two questions, right? One is the average weather, and then example of the daytime, evening time for the outfit, right? So you can actually see from here, the weather is this, and then the daytime you should wear this, evening time you should wear this, and then also give you an example, right? So this is more from like the textual understanding. When you ask a question, the model can actually answer you question in the text format as well. But how about I want to upload a PDF, right? So maybe I want to upload this PDF directly into the model, right? You can actually make use of this library that we mentioned just now. It's the part library, right? So you can actually upload the PDF into Google Cloud Storage, and then you just pass in with the part library, right? How do you actually pass in? Same thing. We just have to create the array, right? Array have, the PDF file, the part object that you just created from the URI, and then you have the prompt, okay? So same thing, you just pass in the content into multimodal, generate content, and you should be able to see how many tokens can this model process. The information will be actually retrieved from this the PDF report. Okay, you can go and like read the PDF and see whether the answer that the model is giving is the same answer that you get from the PDF, right? So this is how you would use PDF in your input to ask question about the PDF, right? So we couldn't do this initially because our models with context window are actually smaller, right? And things like putting in the entire PDF is too much for the model to handle. But nowadays there's a lot of ways that you can actually process it because the context window is very, very large these days, right? So you can actually upload the PDF, actually upload the videos and things like that, right? So now we're going to just try to summarize the document, right? The same thing. All you need to do is pass in a PDF file with the part object, right? You just put in a prompt, whatever prompt you want, just pass into multimodal generate content. You should be able to generate the content based on the prompt that you have, right? So this is another example of using PDF. So we cover text, we cover PDF, then now we go into image, right? So the image, we also store it into the cloud storage as well, right? And we use these helper functions to load the images, right? Load images from URL, just load them up. And then you have some question like, hey, I have an oval face, right? Given my face, which glasses would it be more suitable, right? So these images are actually glasses, right? So let's see here, glass 1 and glasses 2, right? So we're going to just pass in, right? The same thing. When you are trying to pass in the image, right, you also have to load it into a specific image format, right? So these functions actually convert all the byte that we are downloading from the storage into a image object that is compatible with Gemini, right? So once they are converted, you can actually make it into a content, prompt, image, right? So everything after you convert them to part or images or some of the classes, right, you can actually just make them into an array and then pass the whole content into Gemini, right? So Gemini will take care of the encoding them and decoding them and things like that, right? But you actually need to make it into a compatible format or the object for the Gemini, right? So let me go to run this one. It will actually display two glasses, which is this and this. And then because you have an oval face, it will try to say, oh, if you have an oval face, there's round glasses is more better than the square one, right? And you can see that they also say oval faces are, balanced proportion and things like that, right? So not just about giving black and white answer, right? Like 1 or 0. You can actually ask Gemini to give you the reasoning behind of why you provide this kind of response, right? So this is very powerful, especially for recommendation system, right? So if you're building a recommendation system, you can actually explain the reason behind why a model choose this rather than some other product, right? This is very empowering for the user because user can actually make an informed decision based on what they are being recommended, right? So this is about comparing images based on a specific requirement. And another one is about a video description, right? So the video, let me see whether I can actually open up the video. So the video looks like this, right? So the video is kind of like, some random video with the sea and the buildings and the port and some of the boat are lying around and things like that, right? So we're going to just pass in that, the video. Wait, where did it go? Here, right? So this video, we just pass it in. We will say what's shown in the video. Where should I go and see it? What are the top 5 places in the world that looks like that, right? So the same thing, you have to create a part library and then use the URI to adopt this. And then you just have to display the video and then pass it on through the content, right? Make them into array, right? What your prompt is, what's your video, and then just pass it into the model. Right? So once you pass in the model, you will see that, hey, video is Antalya, Turkey, right? And then this is around Antalya Marina. And here are the 5 locations that is close to where it can be seen, right? So even if you don't have the map APIs or some other location-based services, you can use their knowledge from the Gemini model to be able to identify the landmark and the location and so on, right? So you can actually go and see this Wikipedia, and this is what it looks like, right? It looks exactly like the video, right? Okay, same thing. How about you want to extract some information, right? So this is actually a new video, right? This is actually a train. So the train's coming from here, left and right. Okay, so just using this information, right? Can we know what type of train it is, which station are they going to, and things like that, right? So this is a very powerful aspect of generative AI model, because you don't have to provide lots of information, and just from this video feed, you can actually ask like, which line is this, where does it go, where are the station and stop, right? So of course you need to create a part object from the URI and then pass it into the content, prompt, and video, right? It will actually run it. You should be able to see the videos and then the answer, right? So let's see. It actually create. So this is a video that you can see, and then this is like O train line 2 is the from Canada. Is go to the east to the west, right? Is between Blair and Tembley stations. If you want, you can actually go and see the trains and then the lines and things like that as well, right? So of course you need to have like a way to confirm the output from the model whether they are accurate or not, right? So if they are not accurate, then you need to do something called grounding, which we're not covering this time around, but you can actually do more grounding stuff in the future, right? So now we already cover text, image, PDF, and video, right? How about code? Right? You can actually pass in the entire code base, which is like the repo from the Google, GitHub or any of the Google storage and things like that as well, right? So as you put in the entire thing, so I'm just going to run it for you, right? This is actually one of the GitHub repo. You can actually try to replace this with like any other repo that you want, right? And then we're going to create this different helper function to do cloning the repo, extracting the code, and things like that, right? So I already run this one and then move on, right? So I'm going to clone the repo and then get the code index and then the code text, right? So pretty much just like a file name and the file content, right? So I will just get those. And then my code prompt is that generate a prompt to a code related questions, right? And this is like entire code base is provided below. And then here are the index of all the files, right? So code index is like a file index, right? File name. And then each of the file is concatenated together, and you will find all the code you need in this text. Right? So you have like a repo, and then you have all the file names, and then you have all the file content that is stored into the index and the text. And you put it directly into the prompt itself. Then you can ask like, okay, provide a getting started guide to onboard new developer to the code base, right? So it's usually helpful when you are creating like a product, and then you onboard a new engineer. And because in a startup, you're going too fast, right? You might not have the latest way to get started for the new developer, right? You can actually pass in the same thing, right? The prompt itself, we get it from here, right? So the whole prompt is actually ingested to here. Then you just pass in, right? And we are enabling streaming through here because there might be a long kind of guide that coming out, right? So if your output is like very, very long, you don't want to wait until everything is ended and then you provide the feedback, right? So you pass in here, it will actually stream it line by line and things like that, right? To be able to get the information that we need. So here we are generating the get started guide for the new developer just by having our GitHub repo, right? So it's actually going to create one by one. And of course, this is a Python notebook. So we don't have like an interactive way to pump in the data as it comes, right? You can see from here it's coming. So welcome guide, right? So line by line, step by step is coming up, right? So you can actually use this, save it as a PDF, and then you can pass it the new camera for the person to get ramp up on the project, right? The good thing is you can always regenerate as your code base evolve, right? Maybe you want to have more features into it. You want to change the code base entirely and things like that. All you have to do is just report, right? Like just regenerate, and then you can see all the things like currency service, email service, front end, and things like that, right? And you can also see like which language it uses and so on. Okay, so this is from the code, right? And you can also ask the Gemini to help you find the bugs, right? So, find the most top severe issue, and of course, you can kind of like be specific about what kind of issues, right? Maybe security issue, maybe integrating issues, right? Maybe credential issues and things like that. This is really good for creating the code review and code screening, right? Maybe you don't want like the credential to be leaked out, right? So you can just say find any credential that is leaking out from this particular code base, right? Then before you pushed, you can actually create the hook to actually check your code base for any vulnerability, any things that you're supposed to be leaking, and things like that, right? So you can kind of see that some of the issues with Redis and like AlloyDB and things like that here as well, right? So this is how you can analyze the severity issues. And how about summarizing? Summarize the code base and then top thing that I can learn from it, right? So maybe you found like a repo on the internet and you don't really know, or you don't have time to go through every single line of code to understand. You can actually pass into Gemini and then Gemini help you understand it, right? So here we're not doing the num streaming because you are creating a summary. So summary should be kind of short and fast enough to process, right? That's what we are doing. So let's see it give a very good explanation of this or not. So it's still running, right? What I'm going to do is we run through every single line, and it will say, oh, this is a microservice demo, and here are some of the things that you see. And top three you can learn from. You can learn about microservices architecture, GCP for application development, and you can also learn from the gRPC call, right? And you also give a different deployment option using like a mesh with eStore, or like Spanner with the Redis, or like the AI system with Gemini, right? So things like that, right? So you can actually give like a summary to the newcomers, or new project coordinator, and then you can actually give them get started guide. So all this thing can just be generated using Gemini, right? So this is the code generation. So once this is settled, how about audio, right? So the audio files, it looks like that. So let me see whether I can actually share. Can I share audio? But you can actually go and take a look, right? All you need to do is just display the file. Right? I'm just going to run this, and then what I'm going to do is going to just display the audio. Let's see. I don't think you will be able to hear because it's... Yeah, you can actually go and like run it by yourself and listen to it, right? And we're going to just ask for summarization, like provide a short summary for the title and the audio, provide chapter, right? So let's say you have a podcast recording, and then you wanted to break it down into segments and things like that, right? Maybe it's too long, you want to break it into two and things like that as well. You can actually do using those Gemini to understand the audio and then give you the outline, right? What are the outlines? What can you do with it? And the important line here is that do not make information that is not part of the audio, and do not be verbose, right? So sometimes AI model can actually make up some answers that not inside the audio, right? So you have to make sure that you put this line so that it will only use the information that is gathered from the audio file, right? And do not be verbose, meaning you don't put lots of output, right? You only want the chapter name. Only the chapter names are here. Okay, so now, right, this is more of like summarizing in a way of your audio. But the next step is to like, okay, I want, transcription, right? I want someone to help me transcribe, right? Initially, we had to hire people to do that. But now with Gemini, you can just actually do this like that. Same thing, right? So you have to do part library, pass in the URI, and then pass in the audio file and prompt together in the array. Pass in the array, you should be able to see it from here. Okay, so this is from the audio standpoint, right? So we talk about multimodality, right? But they are always like one after another, right? You have like audio and then prompt, you have like images and then prompt, you have like video and then prompt and things like that. What if, right? You can see the result is quite good, right? From 809 to something, this is what it is, right? You can also even determine speaker A, speaker B, and speaker C, right? So you can actually, if you know the person name, you can actually Control F and like replace that. Okay. So now is the multimodality, right? So we initially just do one by one, right? Text, image, audio, video, code, and things like that. But what if we want to have everything at one go, right? Everything, everywhere, all at once, right? So we have the video coming in, right? Video is here. And this video actually have the audio inside, right? This is about the inspiring street photographer from. You can actually see and hear about um, the dialogue and the conversation that they have with the speaker, and then so it's actually in Japanese, but it's also have a transcription in English, right? So we are trying to test the power of Gemini from having video, audio, text, and everything all at once, right? You can see that it can actually just pass in a video file, and then it should be able to understand what this video about, and then any important dialogue from the video, right? So it's about a young woman who actually a photographer using the Pixel phone to capture it, right? Some of the dialogue, right, is that the introductions, and then something about night sight that she wants to use the Pixel phone for, right? So here is like more advanced, right? Let's try everything at once. You have the Pixel video, you have the dog video, right? So let me see whether I can show the video. Oh, they're going to show the video here, right? So what we're gonna do here is like finding needle in the haystack, right? You have the video that is like 5 minutes, and it actually have different kind of segment, right? So it's actually recorded that the different places coming in. There are different people involved. They are doing different things, right? There's some human, there's some dogs, there's some like a water hose, car, camera, all sort of things, right? So this is the video, and then we have the image, which looks like this, right? So let's see, it's coming up. Right, this is the image, right? So what we want to do is like use this image, find it in this video, and give us the timestamp of it. Right, so look through each frame of the video, answer the questions, only base your answer on the information available. Do not make out any information, and then one is the moment of this image happening. Provide a timestamp, and then what's the context of the moment, right? So not just about finding the right frame, and also give us a context, what's happening over there, right? So you can actually see from here that it will actually use the videos, audios, image, and then search it inside the video, and then you have timestamps, also the context, right? So this is how powerful multimodal models are, right? This is where you can use harness the power of Gemini to make it, right? The question is like in 048, and then the man sitting on the sofa taking a selfie. The narrator says a story about a blind man and his girlfriend, right? So we can actually go back and verify it's 048. I'm going to just go here and 048, right? See, 048, you can start the human, right? So this is how powerful these AI models are, and then hopefully it's inspire you to build more products and integrate more into your business to harness the power of it, and then you kind of like increase or levitate your experience for the product, right? So another one is like one of the use case is about retail e-commerce, right? Assuming your customer come in, right, and then tell you like, hey, I have this room, I'm looking for art, right? I want to put something here, right? What kind of art is suitable for this? And I want to know. I usually you have to go to like a counter and then ask the people to kind of recommend a couple of reasons, right? It cannot be trusted because sometimes the salesman try to push you for certain things and things like that. But what if you give them options? You have like 3 arts, 4 arts. How can I actually recommend those art here, right? So I'm gonna just download all the images and the room. So this is the room, and then say I want to recommend a new furniture. How can I do that, right? The same thing, if you have multiple prompts, multiple input, just put all this thing into the content, then you should be able to run it here as well. Once everything is here, like for example here, I have all the images here, right? And I will just put them all together. And in case of recommendation, it's good to label it, right? So you have like label them into art1, art2, and art3, so that the model can actually reference like this, right? Here, art1, art2, art3, art4, and then I will break it down into this, right? So art1, is this appropriate, compatibility high? Art2, very high. Art3 is moderate. Art4 is low, right? So you can actually see the reasoning behind why. And then because Art2 is very high, it will say it's a winner. And Art1 is like strong contender. Art3, not so much. Art4, really not, right? So that's how you would use multimodal capabilities of Gemini to be able to create better recommendation system, better analytics part of things, better finding the needle and haystack kind of problems, different audios, input, output. You don't have to always convert into different type of things. Right, so that's pretty much the end of my presentation, right? You already have the credits, you already have the notebook. Please go ahead and try it multiple times and see whether that inspires anything that you want to do, right? If you have any issues, just reach out to her and, she can help me redirect to here. And hopefully there's everything okay, right? There's nothing much of the difficulty. And if you want to actually find out more about, you can actually go into like view on GitHub and you will actually reach to the GitHub repo. The GitHub repo have all sorts of information you can actually go through, right? If you're inside open model, if you want to learn more about groundings, if you want to learn more about all the workshops that we do, if you want to learn more about embedding conversation, you can actually go, right? Even there's a Gen kit to actually help do the things as well.